Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Female Male Perspective with Tina Valiant and my co-host, Eddie Cunningham.
Hello.
Hello, Eddie. How are you today?
Good, actually. Dealing with some business stuff behind the scenes. It's been a lot of fun trying to free up my life. I'm selling one of my businesses, but it has been a lot of work. Some of it I think is unnecessary work. And it seems that when you have too many hands in the pie, egos get involved and it becomes more complicated than it needs to be. But
Us
doing
darn
really well.
realtors, right? It's the
Right.
realtors that are the problem.
Well, yeah, I wasn't going to throw anyone under the bus, but I definitely want to drive the bus that runs them over, but maybe.
Well, I am not a part of that transaction, everybody. He is a commercial agent and they're dealing with another commercial agent, and it's not anybody that I know. So
No.
if I would have been involved, this would have already been done a long time ago.
You are hired. You are hired. Oh,
So, well, today we're actually going to be talking about relationships and finance.
big
And
one.
this is
Yep.
a hot topic for a lot of relationships out there, including mine. I mean, along the way, every relationship I've ever had, this has been a hot topic. So let's dive into it. From a male perspective, what has it been like for you with finances and relationships? And let's not go into all your templates and stuff like that yet. Let's go into some stories.
Okay. How has it been for me? How's it been for me dating since my divorce years ago, or how has it been just throughout my life?
Relationships and finance,
Well, it's interesting. So most of us, whether we realize it or not, start forming our idea of money and finances from a very, very young age. So I started out with life. I didn't even have air conditioning until my junior year in high school, and we lived in Phoenix, Arizona. So I mean, we had a swamp cooler. Always had the doors open. I had a really blessed life growing up, even with the hardships that I went through. But I watched my dad go from us not having much to working so hard to earn the things that he earned. And he became a very, very, very successful man. One of my greatest inspirations for overcoming life and making something of yourself. But along with that came my idea of money and finances. And we all come into every relationship with an entire book of agreements written around how we were raised and how we choose to see things, how things were kind of forced on us. My mom made our clothes sometimes.
wow.
And so like she did her best. She wasn't a seamstress, but she even made our clothes because we were so low on money at one time. And I got made fun of at school for it. It was my first real introduction into, wow, we must not have a lot of money. So me, I'm very, 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 very frugal. Now that doesn't mean I won't spend money, but I'm very, very frugal.
I've seen that motorcycle.
You want to hear a funny story about finances? So I love it. And I felt so bad. So my accountant calls me. She called, this is a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, I got to talk to you about something. And I'm like, what's that? And she goes, we're missing money. And I go, how much? She goes, we're missing $32,000. And I go, what? And she goes, yeah, somebody went and did a withdrawal for $32,000. I was like, are you kidding me? Like when? And so we started going into it. We started delving into it. And about like 10 minutes into this, I went, oh crap. I said, yeah, I know where that money went. And she goes, where? And I sent her a picture of my new Harley. And she's like, I hate you. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Racking her brain trying to figure this stuff out, and you're the one that spent the money.
Yeah, I totally forgot to tell her about that. But here's the big thing about finances, and it's perfect leading into it. And Bridget, I love you. Thank you for being such an understanding bookkeeper and accountant with me. But it does come down to communication, because we are all going to come from different backgrounds when it comes to how we view finances. Some people have a lot of fear wrapped up around finances because they have been so poor that they don't ever want to get back there. So they're almost like wanting to just hold on to it almost too much. And then there's people that never had to struggle. They never in their life had to actually struggle for something. And so to them, it's just like, oh, well, money will always be there. And when you get two different opinions on finances, it really can make a hardship on the relationships.
Yep.
Big time.
Yep. I am walking, living, breathing proof of that. And I've done it like every which way possible. Okay. It's no secret that my first husband that I was married to for 12 years, very controlling. His family was very wealthy. And for whatever reason, he felt that he needed to have total and complete control. So I really wasn't allowed to have a career. I wasn't really allowed to have friends. I wasn't allowed to carry a credit card or a checkbook or a debit card. I got $300 a month for the groceries for the entire family.
Can
That's
I
how
ask you a
budgeted.
question here?
Yeah.
What was it in you that allowed that to happen, to allowed you to give up that much control? And I'm asking this also because I did the same thing. In my last marriage, my ex had a lot of hangups around finances because of her previous marriage. And I willingly gave her and said, okay, here, you want to feel completely in control about it, you can have it.
Right.
So what was the reason for you to give up that much control?
Because I also grew up in, I wouldn't say we were dirt poor, but we definitely struggled in my childhood. You know, my mom was a server, and when my stepdad came into the picture, he was a window tinner and he made decent money and his life started to get better. But there wasn't a lot of security. And even when I was like 14, 15 years old, when I was 15, I got my first job. And I got my first job so that I could start paying for my school lunches and my clothes and makeup and anything that I needed because we just didn't have the money for those things. And so I started walking to work to be able to afford those things for myself and take the burden off of my parents. I didn't want my parents to have the burden of the things that I needed. They never asked me to do that. It was just something that I chose to do. And I never stopped working. My senior year, I had 3 jobs
Oh,
because
wow.
I was going to be okay financially. So when I got into this family who was extremely wealthy compared to anything I know. Now in today's world and society, when I look back, it's not that they were extremely wealthy, they were very comfortable.
Got it.
But his mom was very frivolous with money, and I think that that was his fear, was that maybe I would be the same way. But I mean, she would buy a car, have it for 2 months, and then give it to us and be like, I don't like it anymore. You know, and so all of a sudden I would have a new car to drive. Now here's the interesting thing. I wasn't allowed to pick anything. I didn't pick my clothes. I didn't pick my cars. I didn't even get to pick the washer and dryer that I used every day. So I literally had no voice, which is why I wrote the book, Finding Your Voice, because I think that there's a lot of people out there in different ways that are suppressed with this. But for me, there was still safety and security in the relationship, and that I knew that I was always going to have a place to live. I was always going to have a car to drive. I didn't have to worry about anything, even though I didn't have any freedom to do anything. The safety and security came first and foremost for me, for my children.
So you're saying there was something in your past that made you seek what you felt was safety and security.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the big question for you. At what point and what did it take for you to realize that you were giving up your feeling of safety and security, or you were accepting that by giving up your freedom in order to have that feeling of safety and security? Like what happened that made you realize you were doing that and want to actually change that?
It was in what I call my defining moments. And we've talked about this in other episodes where I was very, very, very sick. I had spent 2 years on and off in bed. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then I was finally in the hospital, so sick that I couldn't even drink water. And they told me that they believed I had cancer and they were trying to figure out exactly where it was because of my blood work being all over the place. And in that moment is when I looked at him and realized, I don't even like you. Something has to change. Like I have not lived my life the way that I want to live my life. And I have not had enough experiences with my children. I haven't even had enough experiences myself. I mean, here I am, I'm 29 years old. I had never even been to a nightclub. I wasn't even allowed to listen to other kinds of music in my car than Christian music. Like literally when I left the marriage, I didn't even know what kind of music I liked.
Interesting.
So it was a whole new world. And it was kind of funny because when I actually left, I was already into timeshare, which he was very against, but I was doing very, very well financially at that point. And he had no problem taking the money and spending it, but he didn't want me to have it. And I'll never forget this. When I actually was leaving, we had just gotten done with the realtor to sell the home. And he's sitting at the table and he's got his checkbook out. And he's like, so what's it going to take for you to stay? Do you want money? I'll give you money. What's it going to take? Like, you couldn't pay me enough money to stay. I don't even want anything in this house. I want my kitchen stuff that your mother bought me as gifts. That's all I want. You can have everything else. I just want my money from the house and I want to move on. I'm done. I want to take back control of my life. And it was interesting because after that relationship, I came to visit my parents, like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 months later. And I'll never forget my mom looking at me and I'm like goofing around and I'm joking and like all this stuff. And my mom's like, oh, there you are. I haven't seen you in 12 years.
Wow. That's powerful.
It's so great to see you again. And it was just
his version of you.
Right. And it was just this eye-opening experience. And it's funny because I have people from Colorado that watch the show that knew me when I was in that time, right? One of my bestest friends since I was 14 years old, she corrected me, by the way, from the show. I did have female friends in high school. She was one of them.
That's right. So on one of the last episodes, you said you only really got along with guys and had guy friends.
Right. She was one of the few females that I was friends with. And she's actually the one who introduced me to my first husband. And then after we got married, she was like, you weren't supposed to marry him. So, but it's funny because they watched this and they didn't know. Like they just thought I was stuffy. I had my nose in the air trying to cover up. I didn't want people to know what I was experiencing at home, especially with the finances. But I would go to McDonald's with my kids for a play date so they could play with all their friends after Bible study. And I would get ridiculed when he got home. Where did that $10 go? How'd you get $10? Where'd it come from?
Well, and this is why it is so important to discuss finances before you move forward in a relationship and really be committed with each other. And it's, I talk about relationships all the time in the other podcasts I've done, and in the other speaking things that I've done. I talk about relationships almost become a negotiation, and they really don't need to be, because it's about two people coming together, realizing, hey, we are bringing a bunch of weird beliefs and different beliefs that may not even really be our beliefs, but other people told us to believe. And we're going to try, instead of saying my belief, your belief, let's fight over it, and whoever wins gets to have their belief and the other person has to accept it. We go, hey, let's just seek truth. Let's figure out what finances really are about. And let's work through it. Because again, people bring insecurities, people that grew up without money. Some of them can be extremely insecure, but some of them can be extremely humble. And really frugal. Some people that grew up without money, I know people that grew up without money that suddenly have it and they go crazy. It's almost like you didn't have any freedom, you finally got freedom, and now they go crazy with it. It's why they say that better than 60% of the people that win the lottery end up bankrupt in less than 5 years. It's because they didn't go
commit suicide.
Yeah, they did not go through the things that you need to have the ability and respect for the blessing that you're receiving, to be able to use it properly. So important that communication is key to absolutely everything, and not, hey, I'm going to communicate how it's supposed to be and then you need to accept it, and vice versa. It's about how do we actually create a real financial future together. My ex and I struggled with this quite a bit. She came into the marriage with money. I didn't have much when we got together. And it was really difficult because she had issues from her first marriage with when he had passed away. She had told me that there's all these debts that she didn't know about, a lot of debt. So she was like afraid of that. So I willingly gave up the control of the money to her. But eventually I had to find a common ground in order for us to kind of move forward. And the way I did that was lots of communication, but I came up with this idea of 10%, because yes, I absolutely believe, period. This is my belief on relationships and finances. You should have, if you're going to be married, combined finances. It should not be mine and yours, and then somewhere in the middle we kind of throw things at stuff. I think I see a lot of couples that are frustrated when they say, well, I'm in charge of paying the mortgage and my husband pays the utilities. And then there's always this weird bickering. So we were actually able to come up with a really good system that worked for us. And that was 10% of everything that we earned gross first went to tithing. The second 10% went to us. It went to our own account. We called them the 10% accounts. I had my own 10% account. She had her own 10% account. And then the rest of the money that we earned went together for the family. And mentally, that money that was in that combined account was for the family. It was for everything, from mortgage, utilities. And it wasn't my money and your money, it was our money. But the 10% account grew according to what your earning potential was. And neither of us were allowed to, and we both agreed to give each other grief over what was spent from that. So if she wanted to go out and buy a brand new Coach purse and she had the money, not a problem. It didn't come out of the family account. Same thing. If I wanted to go buy new tools, or I wanted to go, buy whatever, it came out of my 10% account.
A motorcycle.
Yeah. Well, I'm single now, so
Right.
the whole account's mine to go buy a motorcycle with. That worked really, really well for us. And it took a lot of work between the two of us. And that's something I got to give her props for, is even though it took a lot of work, we were able to work through two completely different backgrounds financially to come together to create, again, something that works. And it is fair that you pay yourself. You should not have to ever in a relationship ask permission to do things. Relationships, a true, well put together interdependent relationship, is about freedom for the both of you, not freedom from each other, but freedom with each other. And you should not have to do that. So it's all about budgeting. You set aside, and we even had an account even within the common family account that we called the blow account, where we could actually go and blow it on really whatever we wanted as a family. If we just spur of the moment decided, hey, we want to go to the movies tonight, and we didn't have the money in the movie account or in the entertainment account, we would pull it out of the blow account and just go blow it on whatever.
Right. So this is interesting because I've been on every side of this at this point. I have to tell you, my second relationship after my first marriage, he really great guy. We're still on good terms. He's a really great guy. He still stays active in both of my daughters' lives, even though they're not his biological children, and I appreciate that. He's always been there for them, and we just weren't meant to be married. We were just completely opposite worlds. So we just were never meant to be married. We were supposed to be friends for sure, but we took it to a level that it shouldn't have ever been. And when he came into my life, he's the one that actually helped me figure out what kind of music I liked, how I liked to dress, everything. I didn't know anything about myself. He was like, okay, so this week we're going to try this and see if you like it. And this week we're going to try this and see if you like it. And so we just kept trying different things to see how I felt about it. And then I brought him into the world of vacationing because he had never vacationed before. And that's a really big thing to me. So we helped each other in those ways and helped each other evolve. But I was in a place at that point where I was definitely the breadwinner, and I was not going to let somebody control me at that point. Now, all the bills were paid, everything was taken care of, but I used to shop more and buy myself things more and stuff like that because I made good money.
Did the pendulum swing too far the other way?
Once it did.
Okay. And how did that work? How did that affect you?
He started siphoning money out of the account. When he would go to Walgreens to get stuff, he would take extra cash out and not tell me until he would save it all up. And then he'd have this money that I didn't know about. I found out about this later. I had no idea. Why every time does he go to Walgreens? Why is it $100?
Is that because he was worried about how you would react, or did you become the controlling person when it came to finance?
I think that I definitely became more of the controlling person. Part of it was because he literally made enough to cover himself.
Sure.
But wanted to do other things. And I was always worried that I wasn't going to be able to cover the bills and you know, everything else. And so I was like really careful with that kind of stuff. But we also did a lot of cool things together. But I definitely, I think, was more of the controlling person. Now, then we have this other side where my ex, my most recent ex, who you know, we've talked about, he drank a lot, did drugs. Like 7 months into the marriage, he started doing all this stuff again. It was great. It was interesting because when we first worked together, he was a big part of the business. I mean, he helped me out a lot. But then as he went back to all of these other things, it started to become him pushing me to work harder and harder and harder. And he just wanted to go play. He had 3 gym memberships. He literally every day was like, I need my $100 so that I can go have lunch and hang out with my friends. And you can't leave my account empty. But he couldn't be, my second husband was on my checking account with me. Okay. My last relationship, I couldn't even put him on my account because he was so frivolous with money and didn't understand the concept of money coming in versus money going out. All
Right.
he saw was the numbers coming in. He didn't see that out of almost $300,000 that year, 175 of it went out to business expenses. That was a comprehension he just didn't have. He didn't, even when we were going through our divorce, the judge was trying to explain that to him. He just could not comprehend. No, she made this. Yes. And this is how much went out in expenses.
It's
Not
funny
to
to say that
mention,
a
we were
lot of people
actually
struggle.
300,000 and 175 in business expenses. And then the lifestyle that I provided that he wanted, we were actually in the negative
Yep. There's a
because I just
great
wanted
book.
him to be happy.
There's a couple great books actually, called The Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mindset. And they delve into this. When they went to actually do the book, The Millionaire Next Door, they went to, I believe it was Merrill Lynch, don't quote me on that, but they went to a big financial advisor group and said, hey, would you mind sending out an email to anybody that makes this much income every year? Because we'd like to interview millionaires. You know, this is millionaire income here. We'd like to interview these people on what they do to be, what kind of mindset they have to be millionaires. And so Merrill Lynch sent it out. They got a whole bunch of replies saying, absolutely, sure, we'd love to talk about our life. They went out and started interviewing these people at their homes. And what they realized was that most of these people with this millionaire income were still living paycheck to paycheck, some of them in the negatives, and their debt was slowly accruing larger and larger. And so they said to themselves, these aren't millionaires. These are people with millionaires income, but they are not millionaires. So they went back and said, look, well, actually what we're looking for is anyone that has $1 million, but we prefer 10 million or more in their portfolios, whether that's real estate, stock market, blah, blah, all combined together. But people that have at least a million, we'd love to talk to the deck of millionaires in their portfolios. And when they went in, so they sent it back out, got a whole bunch of replies. And when they went out to interview these people, the crazy thing is they all lived in middle-class neighborhoods. They drove Ford trucks, Toyota Corollas, Honda Accords. They had nice homes. They had nice stuff in the home, but most of them were extremely, extremely frugal people. Fantastic book. If you're ever in a relationship and you need to discuss finances, I talked about how instead of fighting over who is the most correct, why don't you guys go out together and seek the truths of how finances, how the economy really works, and then create your own new agreements together in your new relationship. This is a great book to get you started on it. The Millionaire Mindset and The Millionaire Next Door.
I'll check them out.
It completely changed my life and how I viewed finances, because I knew, especially in my last marriage, that I needed to learn about finances. I was decent with it, but there was so much more to learn, and there's a whole nother level to creating and sustaining wealth. And I wanted to learn that. Again, it's about coming together and doing it instead of fighting about who is more right and both people just totally screw it up and making mistakes. It's really about, hey, let's get together, let's wipe the slate clean, and let's create some real and powerful agreements on how we want to do finances interdependently together.
Sure. And I think that that's really important. So now I find myself in a situation where we're not married, but we still share finances. Okay. Like We don't have shared account, but everything we do, like we like budget it all out together and everything else. And I think a lot of that comes from COVID last year. COVID affected, of course, our family in a huge way because we're in real estate and mortgage. And COVID hit us hard last year. I mean, normally my team does 100 transactions a year, and last year we did 35. We wrote 135 offers, but we did 35 transactions. And people didn't realize how much it would affect our industry. Even now, people are really affected by our industry with decreasing commissions and people being afraid to sell their home, so there's no inventory on the market and things like that. Right. So, much more budgeting involved, much more careful consideration. But it's interesting because I've never been with anybody that wanted to have cash flow meetings. Like, that's new for me. And I hate them because me, I'm like, this is how much we have. This is how much our bills are. This is how much groceries are. Like, to me, it's a simple concept. Okay. This is how much we need to survive. Okay.
So he approaches personal finances almost from like a business point of view.
Yes. And me, I'm like, okay, but
don't be mad at me, but I kind of side with him.
Well, I understand that, but here's the thing. Okay. I am not one, because of my past, to need to ask permission.
Sure.
Don't put me in a position where I need to ask permission, because that's not going to go well. I'm going to come out fighting because I've been in that place and it doesn't feel good to me. He has been in the position where he was called controlling and lectured. And he works very hard not to be that person. So if I say the word, oh, here we go, we got another lecture going on, right? That's a trigger for him. So I have to be really careful with that. But here's the interesting thing. So my business is variable. And sometimes I have to spend money. Well, every month I have to spend money for my business. Half of my personal bills are business expenses. I don't shop. I hate shopping. I'm not out like spending a bunch of money on some bougie restaurants or like anything like that. I'm actually a pretty frugal person. I really don't spend money on a lot of things. I really don't. And I'm not the person to go sit at the spa every week either. I mean, before I met him, I used to have a massage every week. I haven't had a massage since I met him. So like
I gotta have my massage. I'll be real.
Right?
So like, I do it once a month.
Because of COVID, I cut a lot of things out, but my business is variable. If I have listings, my expenses are higher because I have to pay to have the sign and the photos and all of that done. So those expenses are variable. There's no way to gauge what they're going to be from month to month. And then there's the automatic things that have to come out every month, like my transaction management system and all of that kind of stuff. So I have me personally, at this point, I have 5 bills. And then I have my couple of variable things, right, that have to be paid if the business is there. And if it's not, then then there isn't a bill. But other than that, that's pretty much what I've got going on. And like I said, I don't go eat out all the time. I'm not out shopping all the time. I don't do anything like that. So for me, why do we have to sit down and do a cash flow and worry about what's happening a month from now when I may have 3 transactions show up tomorrow?
Well, I think you hit it on the head when you, at the very beginning of that question, when you said, for me, why do I have to do that? Mm-hmm. It's not just for you. It might not be just for you. That might just be for him and his peace of mind. And it's something that you gift to him in the relationship. And maybe that's a question that the two of you need to really, and again, like I talked about, this is all about communication. You guys sit down and say, why do you need this? What is it that you hope to accomplish? And is it worth?
And we've talked about that. I mean, COVID really freaked him out because things got very slim for a while, sure. And he doesn't want to be in that position again. And I understand it. But here's my thing. You're a mortgage broker that make more money. Like, if you're worried about, I'm doing everything I can do, right? I have done everything that I can do to try to bring in more money. And I'm still working on that and bringing in more money for the family and everything that we need. And you have the same ability to do that. You're in a commission world too. So I'm not going to take the brunt of this at this point. If we need more money, dude, I've done everything that I can. So I'm giving you everything. I'm doing everything I can to help and take that stress off. And I'm willing to have conversations with you. But if there's $200 out of the budget that it's like, well, now I see a trend. Now there's $200 that's not there that I didn't account for. Well, yeah, I got gas. Or groceries was a little more expensive for the family. Like things happen. $200 in today's day and age is nothing.
Well, and costs
Yeah,
have
but if
gone up
it's
like
only
crazy.
5 days into the month, if we do that for the next, to multiply that by 6, that's $1,000 missing.
Yeah, with the cost of gas and the cost of living and everything going up, with the forced minimum wage out there, the cost of goods are going through the roof. Like it's just absolutely crazy. So you're right, money doesn't go as far as it used to. You add to it the hit on the economy with all the political issues from COVID. Yeah, it's scary out there, and that's going to bring out a lot of the fears and insecurities that people have, especially around finances.
And I walk in faith. I know that the things that are coming, like we just booked me for Orlando. You and I were talking about that. That's a huge event that I'm doing my 2-day workshop on for real estate agents. And that's in June. And that's a huge event. And it's super exciting. And I see everything occurring now that the economy is starting to open up again and businesses are opening up again. And I have the freedom to do what I really do, which is teach and inspire and coach and all of the things that I do on the platforms that I do, which I haven't been able to do for a year.
Sure.
I think he forgot what it was like having me back in that world. Because that's a completely different world than just real estate in and of itself, right? And so now he's like, really? So that's really going to happen in Orlando? Are you sure? Yeah, there's going to be 200 agents there. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's where I'm going to be. And he's like, we'll see. I don't like that because I walk in faith. I believe that the Lord has a plan and that as long as I follow the plan, the doors open on their own. So yesterday I actually asked him, I was like, okay, so, a year ago when I was feeling really depressed about COVID and everything was shut down and everything, you told me I wasn't having enough faith. Today, I'm going to say the same thing to you. I need you to have faith in the plan and the vision, but I also need you to have some faith in me. Because at this point, it's not just about the dollars anymore.
Nope.
So what do you have to say about that? Where do I need to have a different mindset? Because I'm open to me having a different mindset.
Again, I'll bring it back to taking away from my way, his way, and you negotiate and give and take on that, and instead sit down and go, you know what, let's create a real financial future for the both of us. Let's get some financial education. You guys are great at making money. You guys are even great at budgeting money, and both of you have your own ways of doing that. And I can't disagree with his and I can't disagree with yours. But maybe there's something in the middle as far as how you budget. So I actually budget. I'm with him on kind of budgeting my personal life along the same way I do my businesses. So in my business, when I buy, we'll say one of my businesses is a restaurant. I buy a refrigerator. It's $5,000 for the refrigerator. Immediately my accounting starts to depreciate that. But in my head, I know that at the end of 5 years, the warranty's up and I might have to replace it around 5 years. So I actually create a accounting file for it that not only depreciates, but I put money in each month towards buying a new one. So at the end of 5 years, hopefully I've maintained it well enough that it's still running just fine and I don't have to replace it, but I've got that money just in case I do. I sat down, my ex and I did amazing at this. We both worked really together. This is one of the things that we just worked great together on. And we actually created files, accounting ledgers, really for every single thing that we knew was going to come up. So we anticipated everything that we were going to do, from tire replacements to oil changes to the kids' clothes every year. The kids each got $300 to spend on clothes for the year. school supplies. We sat down and exhaustingly made a list of everything we knew we'd have to pay for. And then on paper, we spent that money before we ever received it. Part of that was, so for instance, we'll just say the Tahoe. The Tahoe has its own ledger, and it was going to need new tires every 2 years. So that's an $800 expense divided by 24 months. That's how much each month we put into the Tahoe account. Now, technically, it was in one big savings account. So everybody, if someone were to have looked at our savings account, they'd be like, wow, you guys got a lot of money saved up. But in our heads, it was already spent. It just hadn't come due yet. So most people will put it on credit. They'll use a credit card for their emergency fund. Their tires go bald, and they're like, oh, I just totally wasn't expecting this. And it's like, you own a car. Why would you not expect your tires to go bald? I mean, it's
Right.
part of it. Same thing with the oil changes and everything. What's going to come due, but most people just don't save for it. So I do. That's a suggestion I would make. If you guys can come together and work on that. One of the things that we came up with, which was huge, besides an emergency fund for the financial security, was a miscellaneous account. We maintained our vehicles the best that we could. And after 3 months, we had the money saved up for an oil change, but we may not have driven it. So all that extra money that would have gone into oil change went into a miscellaneous account. And that became basically our emergency fund. You definitely need a 3 to 6 months worth of finances saved up in case something happens. But you should never be putting it on your credit cards. I try really, really, really hard to stay away from debt of any kind. So that's what we would do. Again, the car has the oil, it has the, and I even had a repair and replacement account. So I had an argument, not even an argument, it was a great discussion with someone in my family about this. And his idea was, I'm gonna have a car payment for the rest of my life anyways. I might as well get a new car every 2 years. And I said, well, if you make a car payment into a savings account, you can still get a new car every few years and pay cash for it. Well, that's just stupid. Why would I do that? Blah, blah, blah. Like I can go and I said, well, follow me on this. If you and I were to go out and buy a $30,000 car, with the interest you pay on your loans, you're going to spend $45,000 on that car. I'm only going to pay $30,000 on every car that I buy. So the thing is, it takes patience. And a lot of people nowadays, especially when it comes to finances, are all about give me the now and I'll pay for it later. Right. It took my ex and I, it took us several years, but we would pay into a savings account a car payment. And then every few years, we could actually take our old car that we had, which was really only a few years old, trade it in along with the cash and get a brand new car if we wanted to. The weird thing is budgeting that way does something to you mentally, though. We struggled with actually going to buy a brand new vehicle, knowing that as soon as we drove off the lot, we were going to lose $4,000 in equity on it. So we would always end up buying at least a year old, or we would buy used. Very rarely did we ever actually buy something new.
Yeah.
Like me buying the Harley a few weeks ago, but I spoiled myself on that. But when you learn to budget that way, and especially and my ex and I, we disagreed on a lot of things, but we worked through on that, and working through on that was really a huge moment for the two of us. And it created one of the few things in our marriage that we were actually able to come together on. And we were very successful with that. It all comes down to communication. It brings up fears. It brings up any of the issues and insecurities that we have from our past, and a lot of the negative agreements that are wrapped up around finances. I keep running it. I've gone out and dated, and one of the things I keep running into is really these huge insecurities around women being controlled, like you've talked about. And not able to fully stand on their own. So they either want someone to completely take care of them, or they want to be completely in control. And it's not been easy. It's a lot of work to work through those issues.
Well, and it's funny because I'm in a place now where I don't want to be controlling, but I
Right.
also don't want to be controlled.
For sure.
If I have a business expense come up that needs to be spent, I'm not going to ask permission. That's my business. And I'm not talking thousands of dollars. I'm talking $200, $500. Like, if it's a business expense and it's my business, I owe it to my team and everything that I do to spend that money. And I don't like when I'm put into a position where I'm ridiculed that I just don't understand how it all works.
Well,
I've made it
that's
this
a whole
long.
separate issue. That's a whole separate issue outside of
Yeah.
finances.
I'm
So
like, okay, I'm not a dumb girl. Like, I'm pretty damn smart. So, like, talk to me like an intelligent person and don't tell me that I don't understand something.
So how do you work through that then? How do you open up the lines of communication where instead of going, I need this to feel secure, I need this to feel secure, and you guys fighting over it to keep your security, how do you come and go, hey, let's set this aside and let's find something that actually works together. Let's create a whole new idea and belief around finances.
We're still working on that.
Good. Here's the thing about relationships though, is no relationship is going to be flawless.
No.
And these points, these opportunities are actually gifts that allow you to work on your past, your insecurities, your fears, and actually come together to build something together, to actually create a real interdependent relationship. Most people look at them as breakdowns. They go to their friends and they bitch and complain about it. Oh, we had another fight about this. It was so horrible. And she said this and he said that. And they don't get anywhere with it. And they don't see them for what they are, which is actual gifts. These are gifts. These are, so here's a great thing. Most of us get on our knees and pray and say, God, give me this. Give me patience, give me money, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this. But the way the universe was created, whether you believe in a higher power or not, the way the universe actually works, this is a truth, is when you ask for a blessing, each of us are amazing creators, and the universe was made for us to be able to completely create anything that we want. But the first thing the universe does, and this is where most people bitch and complain and whine and fall short, the first thing the universe does is gives us the trials that we need to be able to accept the blessing. Because if you receive the blessing before you're ready for it, it will become a curse. Again, back to why a lot of the people that win the lottery end up going bankrupt. They never went through what they needed to strengthen their respect for money and what it can be done as a tool.
Right.
But as soon as the universe starts to give you these lessons and these opportunities and these gifts to work on things, a lot of people go, I'm out. That's it. You don't agree with me? I'm out, because I am not getting back into what I had before.
Right.
And instead of seeing it as a gift. So I'm encouraging people, everyone that's listening to this, I encourage you to make it a point to try and change your mindset and start looking at these breakdowns in the relationships as gifts and opportunities to be able to come together and create a real belief system that works for the both of you and isn't a point of contention. Because they say that finances is one of the number one reasons for breakdowns and divorces nowadays. And it's sad to see that.
I think, especially when dating, okay, like, we're not married, right? Like, I don't want this to be about my relationship, but I've often thought about this in different ways, right? And I love when you do this whole.
Oh, I run into this in dating too. I'll tell you what, I give up.
I think especially when you're dating and you're not married, first of all, you probably shouldn't have a joint account because, like, you don't have that level of commitment, like, at that point. And I don't know if I'll ever go down that road of commitment again.
Yeah, I got no judgment.
Huh?
I don't think there's any judgment there. It's entirely up to you and your relationship.
Right. But I think that when you live together, like we do, I think that maybe having a house account that you're both on,
Perfect.
and putting your portions of your income in there equally to make sure that the bills are covered and all of that kind of stuff is kind of the way to go if you live together. That way, both of you are satisfied and know that all the bills are paid, that everything is good, and then
Well, I've seen
Yeah.
marriages where, and I could never have a marriage like this, but I've seen marriages where, uh, the wife tells me, yeah, I'm in charge of the mortgage and he pays the utilities and he pays the car payments. And I'm like, it just doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't make any kind of
Yeah.
sense whatsoever. Like if you guys are driving the cars together and living in the house together, your finances that take care of that
Right.
should be together, whether you're married or not. That's my opinion. There's other people
Yeah.
that try and work and negotiate through that. That's fine. But I personally believe, but I do believe you have to pay yourself first. I do believe you should reward yourself for your work. And I do believe that there should be a good section of the finances that are yours, that where you have the freedom to do what you want without having to ask permission. It is very unhealthy in any relationship to ask permission to be able to go out and do what you want to do and basically spend the finances the way you want to spend.
Well, and
To
especially for business that brings in more money.
yeah.
That's a tough one. I recognize and I realize that my financial world is a lot different than other people's. I understand that I have variables. I can't tell you every month exactly what my business expenses will be. Now, they're not astronomical. I'm talking, will I have 5 charges of $174 or will I have 1 charge of $174? Okay, they're not astronomical. And if I have those charges, it's because there's more transactions. So it's as the business scales up, I have more expenses, but the business covers those expenses. So I feel like at this point, I would be more comfortable if, okay, we had a house account, both of our names are on it. I'm putting this much into the house account, this much. You're putting this much into the house account, this much. All the bills are getting paid. Whatever's left in your account is your fund money. Whatever left in my account is my business money and my this money. And we don't even have to talk about it. At this point in my life, I feel like that's where I would feel more comfortable.
Then go for it. See
Yeah.
if you can negotiate that. Come on, you're a negotiator. You're a real estate agent. You're a high
I'm a
performing.
master negotiator as far as the attorneys are concerned.
Oh,
So, and I mean, if there ever was marriage down the road and whatever, I mean, that could be a completely different conversation at that point. But I feel like,
it's got to come down to, and it's funny because whether it's finances, whether it's sex, whether it's raising children, no matter what it is, whether it's religion, it all comes down to, every relationship comes down to one thing, and that's communication. It comes down to establishing and agreeing on expectations. So many of us come in with our own expectations that are they've been around for so long, they almost feel part of our character, even though they are choices, we still feel like it's part of us. And we don't express them enough because they just feel natural to us, is what I hear a lot of people. Well, it's just the way I am. Well, yeah, it's the way you've accidentally chosen to be your whole life, but it doesn't mean you have to keep choosing to be that way. If you don't express your expectations, I personally believe you have zero right to be upset when those expectations are not met. And even when you express your expectations, you don't have the right to force them to agree to your expectations. That goes
right.
both ways and both sides. So
I feel
expressing,
how I feel, you feel how you feel. I can't tell you how to feel. You can't tell me how to feel, but let's at least talk about why we feel the way we do.
when you step out of that, I'm right, you're wrong, and start working on, hey, let's just express our expectations. Let's discuss and understand, like my grandpa always said, and I love this. I say it over and over and over again. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, boy. And if you learn to listen, you'll start to understand that person, and you'll finally, and if they can do the same to you, you'll find that common ground in the middle. Again, whether it's finances, sex, raising kids, religion, whatever the differences is in your belief systems, you will come together. But it takes listening, understanding, establishing and agreeing to expectations, and then executing them, practicing, allowing for a little bit of breakdown here and there with love and forgiveness, and the ability to move forward.
Absolutely. So is there anything else out there for you that you would like to share with everybody other than that?
No, that's pretty much it for me. I'm still working through it. Dating has been an interesting process for me. I have such an odd life. I'll be real. I'm not 100% sure. every dating experience has been unique. I kind of swore off dating for a while. I've got some good friends, and it's almost been easier to meet people and go, okay, look, I'm not looking for a relationship, but I would love to get to know you, and I would love for you to get to know me. There's not that any fear wrapped up in it. There's not the angst behind it. It's just been very flowing and very natural. I've been able to have financial conversations without it being like awkward and without it,
Right.
being an argument. So maybe finances becomes one of those things that you absolutely have to talk about before you move forward into an extremely committed relationship. Maybe we should come up with a list. Maybe on this podcast, one of our podcasts should be a list of things that are have tos when expressing before you move on to a committed relationship.
Well, I think that would be a great episode to end our dating series that we're going to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we could end it with, okay, you've gone through the dating. This is where you are. Now, how do you move into the monogamous committed relationship with all of these things outstanding?
Yeah, and I would love to hear from our listeners, from everybody that's out there listening to us. We've been getting some great feedback. I would love to have, what are the things that are most important for you to know before you get into a committed relationship? Would love to get some feedback. People need to message us, comment either on the YouTube or on the Spotify, or reach out to us on our social media and let us know what are the things you want to hear about most. What are the difficulties you're having? Share your stories with us. Let us know what you're going through. We're not going to use names or call people out. We might use the scenario and discuss it, but we would love to have more real life scenarios to talk about on this podcast. This has just been,
Yeah, we don't just want to talk about us.
no, it gets old.
Even though, I mean, there's a whole book written on my life, but no.
I'm working on mine too. But this has been fun. Finances is huge. Finances is a very big thing. Even though I'm not obsessed with money, I understand what it's there for. And it's absolutely important that you learn to respect and use money the way it is supposed to be in order to actually have comfort and be able to turn around and bless other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So how do they reach you, Eddie? How do they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Edified Living. You can find me on my speaker page on Facebook, Eddie Cunningham. It's a fairly new page that we're still working on building. Would love to have more people come on. Feel free to reach out and DM me through any of those social media platforms, and we'll get back to you.
Absolutely. And you can find me on Facebook at Tina Valiant. You can also find me on Facebook with book Finding Your Voice, which is the book that I just published about a month and a half ago.
Love it.
And you can also find out more information about my upcoming workshops. I have a women's seminar coming up May 15th, the first one that we're doing. We have 3 speakers. I'm very excited about it. I will be the first speaker on the floor, and then we have 2 more coming in after me. And that is a free event in the Phoenix Scottsdale area. So super excited about that. So you can go to tinavaliant.com. We have an events tab in my website, and it will show you all of our future events coming up. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great week, and thank you for tuning in.
Take care, everybody.